Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Lead Her Ship podcast, Fostering Authentic and Servant Leadership. This is Dr. Laura Canter, and with me is Deirdre Murphy. We will be the co-hosts of the Lead Her Ship podcast.
Thanks, Laura, and hello, everyone. I'm Deirdre Murphy. We're really excited to bring you some valuable information around women in leadership. Our goal for this podcast series is to bring you some inspiring interviews from some powerful women in business, also a mix of stories and lessons and some actionable tips that you can take away. We also want to encourage you as a women or otherwise to lean into positions of leadership in their business, their industry, and their community. And we're really glad you're listening. As we get started, Laura and I want to take a few minutes to introduce ourselves. So please, Laura, go right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned, my name is Dr. Laura Canter. I'm a sport and exercise psychologist. I was fortunate enough to study in Australia and become a registered psychologist while I was there. I also have a background in industrial and organizational psychology, but really my main paradigm is positive psychology. So I'm really looking to see what makes people flourish. I love helping people understand their strengths, understand how to apply those strengths for success, and whether that's at work, at home, or just in life in general. I've had my own successful coaching business, Canter Associates, since 2007. I started that on the Gold Coast of Australia, and then again when I returned to the United States. I've worked with many different people from all different industries and works of life. I've had the fortunate experience of working with professional athletes and even those who want to make it big in their sport. I've also worked with a lot of C-suite executives, both in healthcare and the financial industries. And a lot of people that I work with, they're actually going through transitions, whether that's a career transition, life transition, a major change in the organization. But I think that's where, for me, helping people to harness those strengths can be very beneficial. Deidre, what about you? How about you introduce yourself?
Well, first, let's acknowledge you're living in Australia. How wonderful that must have been. So we look forward to hearing more of how that culture and that part of your life has impacted you personally and professionally. So congratulations on having that opportunity in your life. Uh,
Yeah, thanks.
My name is Deirdre Murphy. I started my career as a registered nurse. I am a lifelong learner, so I had a desire to learn more about the healthcare industry. So I made a difficult decision to transition away from bedside care, and I eagerly stepped into some leadership roles in healthcare. Along that way, I continued my education. I earned a bachelor's in business administration and eventually an MBA. But through my career journey, I recognized I really have a passion for patient safety. So now, after many years as a healthcare leader, I've made the transition to healthcare consulting, specializing in safety and high reliability. My company is Meridian Healthcare Consulting, and our mission is really to partner with other healthcare organizations and create innovative safety solutions that achieve the most reliable and safe patient care.
You know, it's great. I heard you say you're a lifelong learner. I too have a love of learning and always tease that if money was never an option, I'd be a constant student, just would constantly go back and keep learning. But I heard you say something about a passion for safety. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. In my early days as an ICU nurse, I worked for a great organization and with a wonderful group of nursing and healthcare professionals. I myself was a well respected nurse, and I really loved caring for my acutely ill patients. Over a period of several years, I unfortunately made two mistakes, significant mistakes. Sadly, these two mistakes caused what's referred to as unintentional harm to my patients. At that time, I really didn't know the science of safety. And unfortunately, my organization was not well equipped to recognize or manage the system failures that ultimately had led to my mistakes. So now, roughly 25 years later, I recognize those circumstances had a profound impact on my career. Initially, I had a sense of failure and real disappointment in myself. But over time, the circumstances have really become my inspiration. I want to learn all that I could. I wanted to learn all that I could about safety and really help other nurses and healthcare professionals avoid the mistakes and the personal experience that I had.
That's an amazing story. I know sometimes we beat ourselves up when we make mistakes or have failures or disappointments, but it sounds like you recovered from that and you've actually become a stronger leader. What would you say your leadership style is?
I consider myself to be a servant leader. I really put the needs and well being of my employees or clients first. My ultimate goal is to help others develop and perform to their highest potential. Sometimes I would equate that to maybe being a sideline coach. I look to prepare people to perform at their highest ability in the field, and then really be there when they success and have their success and are the star to give them a high five and reward them for their accomplishment. There's a quote I have found that resonates with my servant leadership style from Eleanor Roosevelt. The quote reads, "A good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves."
Oh, that's a really good quote. I do love Eleanor Roosevelt quotes. Servant leadership is very in tune to what my leadership style is. I would say I'm more of an authentic leader. And really, at the end of the day, that authentic leader, like a servant leader, is emphasizing being genuine, being self aware, believing in that openness and transparency. So, an authentic leader, it's really about inspiring those people around you to cultivate loyalty and trust by being open and honest. You really are showing people that you care about them, that you respect them, that you appreciate what they bring as far as their performance. And I think many people, but especially women, we can have a tough time finding that balance within ourselves and cultivating a certain leadership style that feels right. So people, they can see right through us. They know if we're being genuine. They know if we actually care. So that means our actions need to speak louder than our words. And unfortunately, many do not pay enough attention to cultivate this aspect of leadership. But by being a genuine person, by being open, it's going to help us to be a more successful leader. The best way I think I can describe authentic leadership, if I had to give a quote, I heard somebody say one time, authentic leadership is the full expression of me for the benefit of we.
That's a great quote. I love the connection to being authentic and a servant leader. I think there's a true alignment between those two philosophies, and hopefully, we'll bring some alignment in our podcasting connections as well. Laura, is there anything that you can share as far as any potential highlights or lowlights that you've had in your career that have had an impact to you?
Oh, for sure. I've had many bosses and managers over the years, and I can honestly say I've had very few good ones, which is quite unfortunate. I do think it's challenging to be a good leader. I've been in the leadership role myself, so it is difficult. I know it is. But at the end of the day, we need to treat people how they wish to be treated. So that means that I need to find out about you. I need to know what makes you tick and what makes you an individual. And the only way I can really do that is by getting to know that person and allow them to know me and have that rapport. It's funny with servant leadership, I actually like to think of it as being a trail guide. And so, even with authentic leaders, our job is to say, hey, I've maybe been down this path before. I've seen this road, I've seen this route. Let me just give you a little bit of information to help you on your journey. But really, it's about you doing all that exploration, you being successful on your journey. I'm just here to help you along.
Yeah, that's a great analogy to authentic leadership being a trail guide. I've had some similar experiences in my career path, and as far as having some good leaders and not so good leaders. I recently read an article I thought was of interest, and it stated that 50% of employees leave their companies due to the desire to get away from their bosses. So, despite maybe having a good salary and great benefits, individuals are making some tough decisions and ultimately deciding to leave a company or maybe their boss that they particularly don't like or respect. So, it's astonishing how impactful leaders can be on a workforce.
You're exactly right. So employees, we've heard that old saying before, they don't leave organizations, they leave people, specifically that direct manager. And to your point there, and what the article was saying, it's not about always those extrinsic rewards. Many of us, we think, gosh, if we had enough money, right? All it takes is more money. But that's only to a certain point. We actually don't become happier or more fulfilled with more money all the time. And that's what I was kind of stating earlier with people finding a hard to balance who they are as a person and be professional and find that leadership style. I think too, for many people, they actually stay in roles that they don't like, that they're very unhappy and miserable in, because it's scary. It's scary to change. It's scary to transition. I might have to stay in this role for XYZ reason. Maybe I am the sole provider of my family. And that may not allow people, to seek fulfillment, seek a more happy role, seek a passion instead of just a job, right? Really getting inspired with their career. So you're right, that leader can certainly make or break a current role. And I think this is going to be an interesting topic we're going to explore further as we develop our podcast. Deirdre, what other qualities do you feel a great leader needs to possess?
Oh, great question. I feel one of the most important qualities of a great leader is really their ability to communicate. I've seen some great leaders use communication and also say transparency of information to their advantage. A great leader can also influence a large number of individuals really with good, open, and honest communication. This ultimately will build respect and trust with the workforce. So I think communication is a vital quality that a good or a great leader must utilize.
Yeah, I love that paradox when it comes to servant leadership. How can you be a servant and a leader at the same time? But really, it's all about leading others by helping them to discover who they are, their strengths, what their talents, and what they're bringing to the role. What are some other topics that we're going to explore, subjects that you think people might be interested to hear as we go into our podcast?
Yeah, great transition, Laura. Through our leadership podcast, we're planning to have some female entrepreneurs and look for them to share how they have achieved their success. We're also looking to have some inspiring interviews with women of color or minorities. And if you're like most women in leadership roles, the need for work-life balance is essential and really a top priority. So we'll be providing our listeners with some actionable tips to take away to hopefully help them in their work-life balance. We also plan to provide some encouragement and guidance to those who might find themselves in job transition. It's a much different world out there due to the pandemic, and we want to recognize that. We'll also be incorporating diversity, equality, and inclusion, or DIE, into our discussions, as that's really a prevailing theme in society today.
You're exactly right. Diversity, equality, and inclusion. Unfortunately, it's a conversation that has needed to be had for years. I'm glad people are finally having it, but we need to keep that conversation going. We need actionable steps. And I'm actually very excited that we're going to have some guests on that can help us, that can teach us what we should do, whether it's to be an ally of people who are diverse, to be more equitable in our organizations or in our culture. So yeah, I'm very excited to hear more about that. And for me, it goes right hand in hand with the idea of being resilient, having grit, cultivating that perseverance. And as a positive psychologist, we know that that is one of the top strengths for somebody to be successful, is having perseverance. So yeah, the world has definitely changed through the pandemic. I think all of us have had to learn to be resilient over the last year. But at the end of the day, I also think it's going to force us to head into different directions. And they don't have to be negative. So they can actually be challenging but rewarding at the same time. So very excited to have those guest speakers to help us explore all of these topics and to grow the podcast.
Absolutely, Laura. As we previously mentioned, there's many that make a choice to change positions or career based on their relations with others, and including myself. I've been impacted by a job loss due to the pandemic. So I certainly look forward to learning from others, our guests that we will be having on our podcast series. So it'll be exciting to see how they've had some success making some difficult decisions and really some support systems that they had in place to help them in their transitions.
Yeah, I think everybody's had those up and down moments in their careers. So whether people are experiencing that right now or just kind of feeling the remnants of it, so just trying to move through it, I think we definitely will be focusing on strengths for success, how to be positive, how to be optimistic. But at the end of the day, too, it's all right that we fail. Right? We learn from our bounce back. So yeah, I think it's going to be wonderful to hear all the journeys that our guests have taken, because I'm sure they have similar stories, right? They have similar paths. It wasn't always going up the mountain. So there were definitely some valleys and crevices and places where they maybe took a misstep. But I'm very excited to hear all about that.
Yes, I am also looking so forward to it.
Well, Deirdre, I think this was a good introduction to launch our podcast, but we're going to reveal more about ourselves as we go, I'm sure. I look forward to us developing our podcast over the next several months and just see where it takes us.
Oh, likewise, Laura. Thanks everyone for listening to Lead Her Ship. This is your co-host, Laura Canter and Deirdre Murphy.
Thanks, everybody.